Have you ever felt that something is wrong, even though no one says it out loud? The morning is still bright. The streets are still crowded. People still smile and greet each other. Yet in their eyes there is an emptiness, as if their souls are slowly leaving this life without anyone noticing. We are living in an age full of lights, where all knowledge rests in the palm of our hands. But strangely, humanity has never felt more lost. Everything is faster, bigger, louder, and at the same time, emptier. Conversations have become as fragile as glass, about to shatter. Laughter echoes, but no longer carries the warmth of understanding. The world is full of voices, yet devoid of listening. They say we are living in the information age, but perhaps it would be more accurate to call it the age of forgetting, where people know more than ever, but understand less than ever. Somewhere amid the endless noise, wisdom is quietly retreating, giving way to comfort, to instant reactions, to rehearsed smiles. And then, one morning, you wake up, look around, and realize that what is falling apart is not the world outside, but the human ability to think. I remember sitting once in a cafe in the city, a place designed for conversation. Yet everyone was looking at a screen. 12 tables, 12 faces, blue light glowing in their eyes like the cold lamps of a hospital. No one spoke, only fingers sliding through imaginary worlds. I looked around and saw something strange. No one was truly present. The room was full of people, yet empty like a stage after the performance is ended. And perhaps, in that moment, I understood. This is the truest image of our time. Crowded, but desperately lonely. We have built a world where everything revolves around ease. No need to remember, because every answer is a few seconds away. No need to listen, because every story has been shortened into a clip. No need to think deeply, because no one has time for that. But when we remove all that is difficult, we also remove all that is deep. And then, people begin to believe that shallowness is normal, that noise is natural, and that haste is a sign of progress. A strange paradox is unfolding. The more information we have, the less we understand. The human mind, born to reflect and connect, is now trapped in cycles of instant reaction, like an animal trained to press a button when it sees a light. Emotions have become commodities. Thoughts have become content. And what we call collective intelligence is slowly turning into a pool of noise, where the loudest voice is mistaken for the truth. But the real problem is not technology. Technology is only a mirror. It reflects who we are, how we crave comfort more than truth, entertainment more than understanding. We have built a world that satisfies every instant desire, yet leaves the soul exhausted. Like a never-ending party where everyone laughs loudly, but no one remembers what they are celebrating. I once read a short line in an old book. Understanding does not come from knowing much, but from knowing deeply. Today, we know everything. Stock prices, social media trends, the latest news about celebrities. Yet we no longer know how to sit still for 5 minutes without holding our phones. The world has made silence something to fear, and solitude something to avoid. But it was in silence and solitude that humans once found wisdom. Now, we only find the fear of being left behind. Perhaps the tragedy of this age is not ignorance, but the illusion of understanding. We confuse access to information with intelligence. We believe that reading much is enough, that watching much means understanding, that knowing equals wisdom. But information does not become wisdom unless it is digested through reflection. Just as eating too much does not make one strong, but paralyzes them. Modern humans are not starving for knowledge. They are overfed with it. And like every form of overconsumption, the result is exhaustion. Sometimes I wonder if we turned off all the noise, no social media, no endless news feeds, what would remain? Perhaps only the sound of our own voice. But after so many years of being drowned out, would we still recognize it? Or has it been buried under the dust of distraction until we no longer remember that it belongs to us? There is a cold truth. Society does not become stupid because it lacks knowledge, but because it loses the ability to process knowledge. The new ignorance is not about not knowing, but about not wanting to know deeply. It is subtle, elegant, hidden behind the mask of busyness and modernity. It lives in every moment we scroll past something meaningful to find something easier. In every conversation where we only wait for our turn to speak. In every night we feel tired, yet still reach for the phone because we fear silence. The world does not collapse in an explosion. It fades away, little by little, in human complacency, not through disaster, but through comfort. And that is what is most frightening. We are lulling ourselves with the illusion of progress, while the most precious thing, our ability to think independently, is slowly disappearing without anyone noticing. When you lift your head from the screen and look around, everything is still there. The lights, the people, the city. But a strange feeling seeps into your heart, an emptiness that has no name. Perhaps it is the sound of something fading away, very slowly, very quietly, yet irreversibly. And then, in that silence, an old question returns, clearer than ever. What has made us, beings blessed with intelligence, grow more foolish with each passing day? Perhaps we do not realize it, but the very tools created to elevate human intelligence are slowly pulling us away from it. Technology, social media, education, symbols of civilization were born with a promise to make humanity smarter. But somehow, over the years, that promise has been distorted. We can know everything in an instant, yet our ability to understand is disappearing. And that disappearance is not loud. It happens slowly, subtly, like a silent illness. Think about this. With just a few taps, you can access all the knowledge of humankind, from ancient philosophy to yesterday's experiments. But have you ever felt that the more you read, the emptier you become? As if you are swimming in an ocean of information without knowing where the shore is. We no longer learn to understand, but to escape the fear of falling behind. We stuff ourselves with facts, quotes, and phrases, as if knowledge were a race of speed. But knowledge is never about speed. It lives in the silence between two thoughts. In the moment when we pause and ask ourselves, why? But who still has time to ask why? When the world is designed so that we never stop, each time we try to think, a notification lights up. Each time we feel empty, another video automatically plays. Human anxiety has become the fuel of a vast machine where attention is bought and sold like a commodity. And so, instead of learning to see deeper, we learn to consume faster. The paradox is this. Never before have humans had so much knowledge, and never before has wisdom been so rare. Wisdom is not born from collecting information, but from seeing the meaning hidden within it. Yet we no longer learn how to see. We only learn how to react, as if the world has turned into a stage where everyone speaks at once and no one truly listens. Someone once said that humanity is drowning in knowledge, but dying of thirst for understanding. I think that is not enough. We are poisoned by knowledge. Everything passes too quickly, leaving the mind no time to digest. Like someone who eats endlessly but no longer tastes the food. Our world today is full of people who know, but very few who understand. And the systems around us, instead of waking us up, encourage us to keep sleeping. Algorithms have learned to indulge the laziness of the mind. They give us what we want to hear, not what we need to hear. They soothe our egos, making us feel right, smart, special, while inside, our capacity for reflection is slowly eroded, like a stone worn smooth by years of flowing water. I once met an old friend, intelligent and curious. She used to read everything, philosophy, literature, psychology. But recently, as we sat for coffee, she told me it had been a long time since she could finish a book. "I can't focus anymore," she said softly. "Every time I open a book, I feel like I need to check my phone, as if something is waiting for me somewhere else." I looked at her and realized this was not just her story. It was the story of an entire generation. Distraction is no longer a habit. It is an environment. And like all living things, humans adapt to their environment. Our minds, once used to depth, have learned to live on the surface. Like a fish pulled onto land. We still live, but we have lost something essential inside. What is strange is that in this era of freedom of speech, people fear saying complex things. Complexity is no longer welcomed. No one has the patience for long answers or unfinished thoughts. The world rewards certainty, even when that certainty is wrong. The louder you speak, the more right you seem. The faster you react, the more you win. And so, truth slowly loses the race to speed. The value of slow thought, of contemplation, is being replaced by the value of content. Everything must have visuals, music, catchy titles, and instant emotion. If not, it is swallowed by the noise. The beauty of reflection is seen as boring. The quiet of knowledge is mistaken for weakness. We no longer read to understand, but to comment. We no longer listen to absorb, but to respond. The world seems to be creating a new kind of human, one who consumes infinite information but feels shallow emotions. They know everything that is happening, but nothing that truly matters. They discuss current affairs, politics, psychology, philosophy, in fragments. And while they believe they are becoming smarter, they are only sinking deeper into illusion. We have forgotten that understanding is a journey, not a result. Knowledge was once a long road, where each question opened another door. But now, people only seek short answers and instant certainty. We fear ambiguity. We fear the empty space that wisdom needs to breathe. Yet it was in that very ambiguity that understanding was once born. Sometimes I wonder if society shortens everything, not just to save time, but to avoid facing itself. Because deep thinking is risky. It forces us to look at things we would rather ignore. And perhaps that is why shallowness has become so attractive. It helps us forget, for a moment, that the world, and we ourselves, have lost direction. Yet even in this decline, there remains a chance, because if we can see that wisdom is disappearing, it means we still know what wisdom is. Self-awareness is the final spark of understanding. And perhaps from that, another question, a more important one, will begin to form. If stupidity is not the result of ignorance, but the product of how we are raised not to think, then what is truly running the world today? If we look closer, we will see that the ignorance of this age is no longer an accident. It is designed, carefully, deliberately, like a vast machine running smoothly in the dark. It feeds on shallowness as its source of energy. The world we live in, with its social media, media systems, and politics, understands one thing very clearly. People do not seek truth. They seek emotion. And whoever controls emotion controls the mind. Do you notice it? Everything around us is built to make us react instead of think. Sensational headlines, short videos that make you laugh, get angry, or feel touched, yet leave nothing behind. A small notification lighting up on your phone can change your mood in seconds. The companies behind these systems know this well. Humans are addicted to stimulation like they are to breathing. And when attention becomes a commodity, intelligence becomes the sacrifice. Every tap of your finger is not just an action. It is a piece of data, recorded, analyzed, and sold. The more they know about you, the easier it is to make you believe you are free, while in reality, you are walking the path they have drawn. Every second you spend reacting to meaningless things is a second you lose the ability to see what truly matters. That is how ignorance is sustained, not through force, but through distraction. Today, no one needs to ban you from reading books. They only need to make you too unfocused to read. They do not have to stop you from thinking. They only have to keep you busy. When the mind is flooded with fragments of information, silence, the place where wisdom was once born, has nowhere left to live. And in that emptiness, falsehood begins to bloom. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why shallow things spread faster than deep ones? A 6-second video makes millions laugh, but a single idea that asks for reflection is ignored. Because in this world, simplicity spreads faster than truth. Truth demands effort. Ignorance only needs emotion. And the systems of power, from advertising to politics, understand that better than anyone. There are nights when I scroll endlessly through meaningless posts. Hundreds of people arguing about something no one truly understands. Each side convinced they are right, certain the other is wrong. And no one stops to ask, what are we even arguing about? The world is no longer a place to seek understanding, but a battlefield for the ego. And when the ego rules, wisdom retreats. We think ignorance spreads because people are foolish. But the truth is more complex. It spreads because it is profitable. Shallow content makes us watch longer, feel angrier, scroll further. And in a world measured by views and shares, ignorance has become a lucrative industry. We live in a culture where attention is gold, and whoever knows how to steal it becomes powerful. It is time to admit something. This society has not accidentally made us shallow. It wants us to be shallow. A person who can think will ask questions. A person who can stay silent will hear what lies beneath the noise. And those things do not serve a system built on consumption, built on keeping us feeling never enough. So it gives us endless things that make us feel almost full, but never truly satisfied. They make us believe we are connected, while in truth, we are isolated in our own little bubbles. Every time you like or share, the system rewards you with a false sense of control, while you are only playing a game designed to keep you hooked. The ignorance of modern society does not come from people losing the ability to learn, but from being trained not to want to learn. Sometimes I wonder, if tomorrow the world suddenly lost power and everything went silent, would we still know how to talk to each other? Or would we just sit there, not knowing where to begin? Because true conversations have been dying, not because we have nothing to say, but because we have forgotten how to say something that matters. On long nights, I often wonder, how many people still notice this? How many still feel uneasy about their own shallowness, as if sensing that something precious is being taken away? If you are hearing these words and feel a faint echo within, just a small one, then you are not alone. Perhaps we are all in the same place, caught in the rushing current of distraction, trying to hold on to something real. And maybe if just one person pauses, long enough to think, to feel, to stop scrolling, the world will have already changed a little. Because wisdom is never restored in crowds. It begins in a single quiet moment, within a mind brave enough to face the darkness. If you believe this, hold on to this moment. Share it with someone you know who is losing faith in the depth of this world. Not to spread a message, but to remind each other that we are still here. We still want to understand, and we still believe that among the weary crowd, there are people who refuse to live by noise, because sometimes a single whisper is enough to awaken a sleeping soul. There is a cruel irony in this age. As noise becomes the heartbeat of the world, the deepest things begin to disappear. We have grown used to living in the sound of notifications, in fragments of broken information, until we have forgotten the sound of silence. And in that absence, something else quietly grows emptiness. It makes no noise, brings no pain, only a vague sense of meaninglessness that seeps through the days, like when you scroll through hundreds of images, read dozens of headlines, and cannot remember a single thing that truly moved you. Everything passes too quickly. Today's story becomes tomorrow's oblivion. An accident, a tragedy, a war, all reduced to a number on a screen. Human emotion burns out as quickly as a match. Each time we begin to feel, the world shifts to something new, to keep us occupied. There is no time to grieve, to think, to understand. Everything is programmed to keep us moving. Anything that slows down is left behind. And in the fear of being left behind, we lose ourselves. Perhaps this is how wisdom dies in the modern age, not by suppression, but by saturation. When there is too much information, the essential and the trivial blend together. Truth has no place to stand. In a world where everything can be said, nothing is truly heard. We are living in an ocean of words, where cries for help, ideas, and beliefs are all swept away in the endless current of data. Once, to understand something, people read books, debated, reflected. Now they watch a short clip, read a few comments, and conclude, I know. But real understanding never arrives that quickly. To understand is to walk through the darkness of confusion, to face contradiction, to accept that you may be wrong. The modern world no longer has patience for such humility. Everyone has become an instant expert, a keeper of truth shaped by personal belief. And when everyone is right, no one is truly seeking truth. I once read a statistic that said false news spreads 6 times faster than the truth. The reason is not that people are stupid, but that they are emotional. We believe in what makes us feel strong, whether it is anger or fear. Truth is slow. It takes time. It asks for patience. But patience is something this world no longer teaches. When everything must happen now, when every answer must fit within seconds, truth becomes obsolete. And so, we choose emotion over reason, comfort over correctness. A friend once told me, we no longer seek knowledge, we seek confirmation. It sounded simple, yet it holds the tragedy of our time. Because when each person only wants to hear what confirms their beliefs, the world shatters into a million fragments, each fragment its own reality. No common language, no shared truth, no capacity for dialogue. We call it freedom. But in truth, it is isolation. A new kind of isolation, covered in the glow of screens. Amid these fragments, empathy, once the foundation of humanity, begins to fade. When you see others only through words, through profile pictures, you forget they are human too. We react to each other with anger, with mockery, with a quiet contempt we do not even notice. Because social media has made us forget that every person carries fears, wounds, and unspoken pain. We are forgetting how to look at each other with real human eyes, and when empathy disappears, society begins to decay. Not through war or violence, but through indifference. We stop caring, stop listening, stop believing that we can ever truly understand someone else. The world shrinks into a mirror, reflecting only ourselves. Each person looks into it and mistakes their reflection for the universe. But when all we see is ourselves, humanity forgets that we were once a whole, not a collection of fragments. I believe this is the deepest tragedy of our time. We lose the ability to understand others, and in doing so, we lose the ability to understand ourselves. Because to know ourselves, we must see our reflection in others. We must have dialogue, conflict, friction. But when we only talk to those who think like us, hear what we want to hear, and see what we want to see, we live in the illusion of harmony, wrapped in absolute loneliness. The world has become a place where misunderstanding is the common language. Everyone is trying to be heard, yet no one is truly listening. And in all that noise, meaning once the soul of language begins to vanish, words become empty shells, ideas become products. Knowledge becomes a weapon to prove oneself right. And truth, it lies somewhere in the silence, waiting for someone brave enough to slow down and listen. I used to believe the world would eventually find its balance, that people would realize they had lost their way. But now I understand. Awakening does not come from crowds. It comes from individuals, in the quietest moments, when they grow tired of the meaningless, when the noise becomes unbearable, when they begin to crave something real, even if they do not know what it is. If you are hearing this and feel a soft weariness inside, a sense that something is not right, do not push it away. That is not weakness. It is the last piece of clarity within you whispering, stop. Because only when we stop can we hear the things the world has tried to make us forget. Perhaps it is in the moment we begin to ask questions that wisdom is born. But if wisdom needs silence to survive, then in this world of noise, where does it live now? If we look closely, we will see that the modern world does not simply distract us, it is reprogramming our minds. Every notification, every video, every tap is an invisible command. It teaches us how to live in short moments, how to react instantly, how to seek quick pleasure, and forget just as quickly. Meanwhile, the brain, a fragile creature of habit, does what it knows best. It adapts. It learns to crave small jolts of dopamine and slowly forgets the quiet joy of patience. Humans once learned by listening and reflecting. Now we learn by scrolling. Each day, the mind absorbs thousands of fragments of information, but rarely digests a single idea. It jumps from one topic to another like a lost bird, never perching long enough to understand the forest it lives in. Focus, once the gateway to creativity, has become a luxury few still possess. Once, I tried putting my phone aside and reading a book I used to love. For the first 5 minutes, it felt fine. Then my mind began to itch, restless, searching for something else. I was no longer used to staying too long with one thought. I realized I was no different from most people thinking we are controlling technology, when in fact, technology is retraining how we think, feel, and exist. This world does not need to command us to control us. It only needs to keep us busy enough that we never notice we are being controlled. When the mind is fragmented, when every thought is interrupted, humans become predictable, easy to influence. A mind that cannot stop is a mind that can be steered, and that is fertile ground for those who understand the mechanics of fear and pleasure. Look at how the platforms work. All promise connection, yet the more connected we become, the lonelier we feel. Each person is surrounded by what they agree with, believe in, and enjoy. The algorithm does not care about truth, it cares about reaction. And the fastest, strongest reactions are always anger or fear. The digital world has become a vast classroom where the first lesson is react, do not think. In such an environment, Wisdom becomes outdated. Debates turn into shouting matches. Small differences are magnified into deep divides. And while we are busy fighting over trivial things, invisible hands quietly keep the world turning, powered by our distraction. Some say this is simply the natural consequence of progress, that every age has its change. But what makes this era different is that change now reaches into the neural structure of the human mind. We are not just changing how we live, but how we perceive reality. When the brain learns to crave brevity, depth becomes frightening. Silence feels uncomfortable, and so we fill every second with sound, images, stimulation, anything, to avoid sitting still with ourselves. An old teacher once told me, students used to come to class to learn how to think. Now they come to learn how to answer. That sentence has haunted me for years, because it is not just about education, it is about the entire society. We no longer teach people to find questions, only to choose answers. And in a world overflowing with answers, questions become dangerous, because questions are where freedom begins. When people believe that choosing the right option is enough, they no longer need freedom, they only need instructions. And power, which understands this perfectly, never misses the chance. In the age of data, control no longer needs violence. It only needs to manipulate attention. Every time we open an app, watch an ad, or scroll through a feed, we are offering a piece of our soul, bit by bit, moment by moment. We often speak about freedom of speech, but rarely about freedom of thought, because the most dangerous thing is not when people are forbidden to speak, but when they have nothing left to say. A society can be loud, colorful, full of debate, but if every debate remains on the surface, it is still a silent society. And that silence is spreading beneath the bright noise of the digital age. I remember one night, after the city had fallen asleep, I went for a walk. The buildings glowed, each window lit by the cold light of a screen. Somewhere out there, millions of people were still awake, not because they had work to do, but because they could not stop. That light reminded me of a swarm of lost fireflies, flickering, beautiful, but directionless. Perhaps that is the truest image of humanity today, a collective shining brightly, yet no longer knowing why. We once dreamed of a future where machines would serve humans, but perhaps we have gone too far to the point where humans are learning to live like machines. Fast, precise, efficient, and emotionless. We can no longer sit quietly through an afternoon. We cannot watch the rain without reaching for our phones. The mind always needs something new, even if it is just a word, a sound, a flash of light. We have forgotten the art of emptiness, the soil where all great ideas once grew. And so, maybe we should ask ourselves, if we have given our attention to so many things, how much of it is left for ourselves? If every thought, every emotion, every decision is shaped by invisible streams of data, then which part of us is truly us? In the silence of that question, I realize the most frightening thing is not ignorance, but our adaptation to it. When we grow used to the noise, we no longer want to escape it. When we grow used to ease, we begin to fear truth. And that is when power wins not through chains, but through habit. Perhaps this is humanity's final turning point. Either we learn again how to stop, or we will keep drifting further and further away from ourselves. There's an old saying, those in power do not need to control what people think, only what they pay attention to. In ancient Rome, it was bread and circuses. In our time, it is content. The world no longer needs to hide the truth. It only needs to keep you too busy to care about it. We often believe we are living in an age of freedom, where everyone has a voice, where anyone can express themselves. But if you pay attention, most of those voices sound like parts of the same prearranged symphony. Every day, millions of people share, argue, and react, yet all within carefully chosen topics. Not to find answers, but to keep us engaged. While we argue endlessly over the meaningless, the real decisions, the ones that shape the world, are made quietly, in places untouched by noise. Ignorance, it turns out, is the most efficient tool of control humanity has ever invented. A shallow people need no oppression, they will oppress themselves. They will mock those who think differently, fear those who ask questions, and worship the loudest among them. In that way, power needs no force, only habit, the habit of believing in simplicity, of picking sides, of refusing to think beyond a slogan. Algorithms do more than optimize clicks. They optimize collective thought. They turn the world into echo chambers, places where we hear only our own voices bouncing back. Each person lives inside a private reality, shaped and polished by their preferences. A world where there is no longer a shared truth, only customized versions of it. And when truth is no longer shared, society loses the ability to unite. No one speaks the same language anymore. No one believes in the same things. Fragmentation becomes a weapon. Have you noticed how every wave of outrage spreads like fire? How every false story multiplies like a virus? How every scandal explodes, then fades the moment another takes its place? The world now runs on the rhythm of anger. When people are angry, they move fast. They think less, and they are easier to lead. Ignorance is not a weakness. It is a business model, a political strategy, a form of power. I once read old newspapers from decades ago. The reporting was slower, less dramatic, sometimes even dull. But perhaps that dullness was the mark of truth. Truth does not seek to entertain you. It is quiet, uncomfortable, often dry. Falsehood, on the other hand, is seductive. It has music, beautiful visuals, words that stir emotion, and humans, creatures wired for pleasure, choose it again and again. The frightening thing is that modern control no longer needs oppression. There are no prisons, no whips, no public banners shouting slogans. Instead, there are soft touches, gentle nudges, recommended algorithms designed to make you feel safe. You are free inside an invisible cage. Each time you feel anger, joy, or fear over a piece of news, remember, someone already knew you would. They knew how it would make you feel, and they knew what you would do next. When a society loses the ability to think deeply, it loses the ability to resist. A people exhausted by information no longer have the energy to question power. And so, to maintain control, all that is needed is systematic distraction. Give people enough entertainment, enough fake outrage, enough to keep them busy, and you can do anything in the dark. There are nights when I turn on the TV, flip through news channels, and realize they are no different from entertainment shows. Truth is staged. Tragedy is directed. Fear is sold like a product. Each headline exists not to enlighten, but to keep viewers for a few seconds longer. Ignorance, once again, is not a lack of knowledge, it is an economy. The world knows that when people are fed and entertained enough, they stop asking questions. They stop noticing what is being taken away. They feel fine. They believe they are living free lives while every move, every choice is tracked, stored, and guided. And so, society slides gently into a sweet kind of sleep, where no one feels the need to wake up. I do not think this is a conspiracy of shadowy figures. It is more subtle than that. It is a self-sustaining system, a machine lubricated by greed and fear. No one truly controls it, yet everyone contributes to it. The creators of content, the consumers of it, those who simply want to keep the wheel turning, all feed this collective trance. And the painful truth is, we know it, yet we continue. Like an addict who knows the poison but cannot stop drinking it. Because in those fleeting moments, we feel that we belong to something. The illusion of connection is so powerful that we willingly trade our freedom just to avoid feeling alone. If there is one thing that makes the power of this era perfect, it is the consent of the controlled. No one is forced. No one is coerced. We choose it ourselves. We click. We open. We give away our attention little by little, like drops of blood falling quietly in the night. And then, in that silence, the old question returns sharper this time, and more honest. Do we still have the courage to face this world, knowing that we are part of it too? Perhaps the most frightening thing is not that we are being deceived, but that we know it and still go on living as if everything is fine. This trance no longer needs anyone to sustain it. It has become habit, woven into the structure of our lives. Yet like every dream, it can be broken by a single moment of awakening, by one honest look within, not through loud revolutions, not through slogans, but through quiet acts. The awakening of any era always begins inside the individual, those who dare to pause, to move slowly, to endure silence. For wisdom is not born in noise. It is born in the stillness between two thoughts. There are three simple yet difficult paths we can take to begin walking out of this trance. The first is awareness. No one can awaken if they do not first know they are asleep. Awareness is the small light in the dark room of habit. It begins with the question, Why am I doing this? Every time you open your phone, every time you get angry over a post, ask yourself, who benefits when I feel this way? The question is not meant to fight the world, but to bring you back to yourself. When you know what is shaping your emotions, you regain your first freedom, the freedom to think. The second path is discipline. No wisdom is born out of comfort. Discipline is not self-punishment, but conscious choice. Choosing to read instead of scroll, to be silent instead of react, to seek difficulty instead of ease. The world has made us forget that depth requires effort, and effort is not the enemy of freedom. It is its proof. Set aside time each day for something that forces you to slow down. A page of a book, a paragraph of writing, a conversation without a phone in between. At first, you will feel resistance, as if your mind is pulling away. But slowly, you will notice something returning the ability to feel, to think, to stay with yourself. And the third path, perhaps the hardest, dialogue. Human beings cannot become wise in isolation. We reflect ourselves through others. But real dialogue is not the kind the modern world promotes. It is not a battle to prove who is right, but a meeting of two souls where we listen not to react, but to understand. Martin Buber once wrote, "All real living is meeting. When we meet another as a subject, not as an object, our inner world changes. Isolation fades, and wisdom begins to grow again." These three paths, awareness, discipline, dialogue, may seem small against the vast machine of distraction. But remember, every system of power fears simplicity. A person who can pause is hard to control. A mind that can stay silent is a mountain. A soul that can truly listen is a revolution. I do not believe humanity will fall because of ignorance, but I know that if ignorance spreads, it is only because the wise have chosen silence. In that silence, they allow truth to be distorted, wisdom to be replaced by comfort. Yet if even one person, just one, decides not to move with that rhythm anymore, they have already begun to pull the world back toward the light. Think of this. Every time you choose truth over comfort, you perform an act of revolution. Every time you take time to understand instead of react, you resist the machinery of the age. Every time you have a true conversation, not to win, but to understand, you restore something the world is losing: humanity. In an age where attention is the most valuable asset, guarding your attention becomes an act of courage. Choose carefully what you let in. Do not allow every noise to enter your mind. Protect it as you would protect a flame in a storm. Because within it, in focus, in stillness, lies the part of you no algorithm can touch. There will be moments when you feel alone. Awakening is always a solitary journey. When you begin to walk against the crowd, you will hear laughter, sarcasm, doubt. But do not be afraid. Every person who ever kept humanity from falling into darkness once stood alone. From Socrates to Galileo, from those who wrote words to those who dared to speak a single truth, they all carried the same conviction that truth is worth the price. And perhaps, in this world, there are still souls like yours, people who are listening, reading, trying to keep their minds from drifting away. Maybe they are somewhere nearby in the next room, on a train, in a small cafe. They are not loud, they are not in a hurry, but in silence, they are forming an invisible network of people who still think, still feel, still listen. There is a quote I have always kept close, from Viktor Frankl, a man who survived hell and still believed in humanity. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. The world will not change overnight, but every time one person pauses, one person chooses to think, one person decides to listen instead of shout, the night becomes a little brighter. Perhaps wisdom never truly disappeared. It has only been waiting for us to look up. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If this message touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey we take together. Your support means the world to me.